This is going to give you so much insight on dismissive avoidance. Recently, someone dredged up this old article from 1999 between Playboy and Ben Affleck, and Ben Affleck's answers in this interview are so fucking interesting. It is like being an outsider looking and analyzing someone who has dismissive avoidant and doesn't know it. Are other former girlfriends generally pissed off at you? Mostly, yeah. Why? Probably justifiably so. If I were the next guy to go out with them, I'm sure I would be nodding in agreement about what an asshole their ex-boyfriend was. It's not like I was a womanizer or physically abusive or psychologically abusive or whatever. It's just that these relationships never end well. I think what happens is I end up wanting to be out of the relationship. During the course of a relationship, if you get dissatisfied and unhappy and don't say something, if you don't deal with it right then, it just festers and stays there. So instead of saying, look, don't do that, please don't act this way, I go along with it until I just don't want to be in the relationship at all. Then I create some incident or do something or just don't call. And then she's pissed. And I can't necessarily blame her at that point since I've developed such a passive aggressive rage that I have no sympathy and tell her, well, of course I didn't call you. If you weren't such a nagging, shrewish harpy, I'd call you. But hopefully that's something I'm growing out of. Dude, there's more. Are you on guard when it comes to women? I'm not too guarded. What's fun for me is flirting and having a good time. That's really fun. But a lot of times it's much more fun than all the bullshit, the responsibilities, and the compromises that go along with sustaining a relationship that I hardly have enough energy for at the end of the day. But I like flirting and meeting somebody and saying hi and letting it happen. In this day and age, as soon as you sleep with somebody, it conjures up this whole set of issues, and you've created this whole thing. There's this responsibility. It's almost more appealing to just be flirtatious and have a good time. Then you can flirt with as many people as you want, and it's fun. It's relaxing, and you're not a bad guy, and you're not doing something wrong. Maybe I'll look back at this time in my life in 10 years or 50 years and say, God, I really should have capitalized. I'm certainly no monk, but it just seems a little skeezy to me to do that. But you've got to have fun in life. Now this one right here, this ties it all together for me with a neat little bow. You were about 11 when your parents split up. What effect did that have on you? I probably haven't been through enough analysis to answer that question. I don't know. I had to be the man of the house. I had to take more responsibility at an earlier age. I think it left me kind of schizophrenic. I never knew if I was young or old. I can be serious and heavy and feel very burdened and adult. Alternatively, I can be very juvenile. I had a pretty good childhood. It wasn't like we had a lot of money, but we weren't poor. Okay, I have so much to say. Every single thing he described there is classic dismissive avoidant, and adding in that little tidbit about his childhood says everything. When he's asked about his childhood, the first thing he comes up with is that he was parentified. He had to be the man of the house. What that means is that his father wasn't really present, and because of that, he was put into the father's role. The reason that this can cause dismissive avoidance is because a parentified child is having to take on the burden of adult responsibilities, which is not normal. So you're dealing with a little boy who probably has a very stressed out mother who is very overwhelmed with all the many things she's having to deal with because now the father really isn't in their life. And so she's using her son to help out with those responsibilities. What does that do to the son? He gets extremely suffocated and overwhelmed, but he has to stay strong, right? Strong and capable. He has to be there. He has to be perfect. He has to be doing everything. He has to help mom. He has to be there for mom. What that does to him internally is that he's not allowed to have needs now because mom's needs and the needs of the family are the most important. I have to be the adult. I have to be the man of the house. But like he said about feeling schizophrenic, the problem is no one is addressing his emotional needs, right? So he's forming this avoidant wall between himself and the world, but he also isn't getting his emotional needs met. And so he's not maturing emotionally. He's not maturing in his vulnerability or his ability to, in a healthy way, express himself. And so that is why he talks about getting in relationships and everything just festers until he feels this rage inside toward the women that he's with. Because growing up where you have to be parentified, you're not allowed to have needs. You're not allowed to come to the table and say, hey, I'm struggling with this. I don't want to be the man of the house. No, you have to do that. So when he's in a relationship with a woman, what's going to happen to him is that the minute that woman starts depending on him, the minute that relationship gets more than just flirty and fun, as he's talking about, he's going to feel immediately overwhelmed and suffocated because that is how he felt in childhood with his mother. He's going to say, oh my God, this is triggering. I don't want to go back to this feeling. I don't want to have to do this again. I don't want to deal with her needs. I have my own needs, right? But he lets it fester because he doesn't want to cause conflict because he's a dismissive avoidant. So he doesn't say anything. And then it builds and builds and builds until a point where he's just feeling all this rage and he's losing it. And then he projects it onto her. Well, I would have called, but you did this. I would have called. This is all your fault. It's your fault that I'm leaving. And I found it so funny when the interviewer asked him if he's guarded with women. And Ben Affleck's answer is that he's not too guarded. No. You are very guarded. You just don't know it. The reason why you like everything to be flirty, fun, exciting, not having to take on responsibility is because you're so guarded. And just to be clear, I'm not trying to talk shit about Ben Affleck, okay? I actually like applaud him for being honest in this interview. I think it's really interesting to read this stuff. But I have a feeling he hasn't grown out of this, considering that he just like abruptly left his relationship with J-Lo. Like, she literally was in New York and he packed up all the stuff and fucking just left and discarded her. So